Of the Lake Mills City Council to order for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. Misty, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Curler?
Here.
Ms. Schmager?
Here.
Ms. Quidno?
Here.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Mr. Waters?
Here. And
Thank
Misty,
you.
can you turn up your mic a little bit?
Yeah, Misty, your voice is a little quiet too.
Okay, I'll try to talk louder. I can't adjust.
Perfect, thank you.
That's much better. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our next agenda item is Councilmember Board Reports and Acceptance of Meeting Minutes. The only minutes we have tonight are from our last City Council meeting of November 19th. Are there any questions or corrections for those minutes?
No, it's fine.
Okay, hearing none, we will accept those minutes into our record. So next item is correspondence. Mary, can I start with you?
Sure. I had correspondence regarding a question on the winter parking ordinance, the Rock Lake water level order. I joined the neighborhood meeting and received quite a bit of correspondence on the Vanguard development. Received correspondence on the timing of putting up the Santa and lights in Commons Park. I attended the RLIA meeting on PFAS in the lake and also received correspondence on a formerly discussed insurance claim that was on the agenda last meeting.
Great, thank you. Greg?
Not to recap, Mary, but I think the only addition I had to that was a couple emails on workforce housing, but that would be it.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Second to that, I don't really have anything more to add, but I did have a lovely conversation in person with a constituent.
Great. Steve?
I think mine was all the same. I had numerous emails on the Wingard and then also the one on the Black Friday email about the Santa and Commons Park being ready.
Great, thank you. I had all the same that people have described. I also had a conversation with a constituent about Sandy Beach Trailer Park, specifically about the trailer park. I had a neighbor contact me about a tree on private property on Ray Street that they're concerned about. And I had quite a bit of correspondence on Vanguard, and I did want to just kind of summarize it briefly. The Plan Commission discussed it a week ago, and so I was getting a lot of correspondence before that. So I've heard from city residents for and against the project, from a number of town residents against it. I've had some correspondence and conversations with the school district. I've been talking with representatives at DNR and received some correspondence about the landfill and the private wells. So I think we'll be, when that project comes to us, there will be a lot of information for everybody to review. So just kind of a heads up that when that does come back to the council, it's not on our agenda tonight. There's a lot of material to review. So just so that everybody's aware. Okay, anything else? Okay, great. Then we will move on to questions and public comment. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. Public comments may also be made on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. And we do that by having people sign in ahead of time. The state's open meetings law discourages actions by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided. For those attending online, hopefully you've notified the clerk that way by typing your name and address in the chat feature. So is there anyone in the room who would like to make, who's signed up to make public comment tonight?
Good evening, Patrick Doyle, 325 East Washington Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council. I'm speaking in regards to the apparent inaccuracy that occurred in the data used to put together the current future land use map. They do not reflect the wishes of the community. We feel you were given inaccurate data. This also was true of the data you were given in putting together the proposal for a restaurant at Sandy Beach. That became obvious after the community strongly voted no on the recent referendum. We ask you to vote no on changing the zoning on the development on Highway B. We also ask you to then open the process to amend the future land use map. It was brought to my attention this past weekend that the number of tenants proposed in the Weingard proposal is larger than the apartment development on the east side of Lake Mills that is visible going eastbound on I-94. The Weingard development does not fit where it is proposed. Please vote no and amend the future land use map. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. And again, just to confirm for everybody, there's no discussion or action on that proposal tonight. Next.
Good evening. Thank you again to the City Council for allowing this opportunity to speak, and I want to thank the Lake Mills residents for their active involvement in voicing their feelings regardless of how they feel about the development on Highway B, future development. So thank you to all the residents. This proposal meets with my full opposition. Compelling reasons have been given over the last several weeks by Lake Mills residents, especially those directly impacted by this monstrosity that would mutate their backyard. I encourage the City Council to amend the future land use map to reflect the voice of the community. It clashes with the will of the people. As our elected officials, you are the only ones who can do this for us. Your constituents. We voted for you to speak for us, and we have spoken clearly. There's much to unpack, but I will keep it brief with a new perspective. For years, my husband and I have attended uncounted planning commission and city council meetings for various reasons and various issues. We have witnessed board members and councils come and go. What has remained constant in our observation is a lack of community attendance. We were lucky if even 3 or 4 people would show up. This has been frustrating for you, and it has been frustrating for us. This situation is different. You already know that. This matters to people and they sense it. The informational meeting had in excess of 100 individuals. Emails were sent to commissioners and council members. Petitions had accumulated over 500 signatures. Council members and planning commissioners reached out to us. There was standing room only at the meeting on November 26th, last Tuesday. And 24 or more invested citizens spoke and pleaded with you to consider the life-altering effect this complex will have. Some who never spoke in front of city government, but set aside their fears because they understood the importance of their voices. People applauded, stayed late, talked afterwards, and the next morning, Facebook, Messenger, and emails lit up with passion and concern. Doesn't this complete shift in enthusiasm indicate that the future land use map and its zoning needs a revision? If you are a voice for the people, why would you vote in favor of multifamily zoning? Why turn what used to be a dump into another more hideous dump? Think about your decision. If you are not hearing and voting for us, the people, you are doing a disservice to the seat you hold and the responsibility you bear. If people feel our city government has its own agenda or feel no interest in getting involved, it may be because they feel their voices are not being heard.
Mary, you're getting to your time.
I
If you
have
can
one
wrap up.
sentence.
Okay.
Lastly, think about where you currently live. Would you be approving this in your backyard? Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you for also sending that by email. I think you sent that to the council, so we have your,
Yes.
we have your
But
text.
I wanted
Appreciate
it
that.
publicly recorded
Right,
as well.
I'm just acknowledging that we also have it in
Thank
text, so
you.
I appreciate that.
that.
Ms. Curler, could I just ask Ms. Doyle to please state her name and address for the record
Oh,
and for the
thank you. I missed that.
online? Thank you.
Mary Doyle, 325 East Washington.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else registered to speak tonight? Chris?
Chris Lopak, 419 Campus Street, and I'm here asking for you to reconsider Resolution 24-77, action allowing claim from disallowance to allowance. 77 days ago, a city-owned tree fell across the street on a city-owned power line that runs parallel with Campus Street, which then ripped a city-owned power line back to my house, and it tore off wood, insulation, and siding. Those are in photos 1 and 2 that I sent to you earlier today. Additionally, that day, the city sent an employee to survey the damage, to which he stated to me, "You have significant damage. You should go ahead and file a claim," which is why we're here. An additional city employee later that week informed me that neither of the 2 city-owned trees on the terrace were in the city database, and that the silver maples are known for splitting just like this tree did. I found that intriguing. Throughout this entire process, I had been repeatedly told there was no record of this tree needing attention. The city didn't know it was going to fall. It just fell. Personally, I can't imagine how extremely difficult it is to monitor a tree, make notes, store images of areas of concern, etc., when it doesn't even exist. Lake Mills forestry facts from the city website state that we use and maintain a computerized tree management plan. We have inventoried 4,207 trees, somehow missing my 2. We prune the street trees in a routine of 3- and 6-year cycles based off of tree size. Smaller trees, 3 years, bigger trees, 6 years. None of that applied in my situation. When was the last time there was an audit? How many more trees are unaccounted for across the city that homeowners would be responsible for due to inaction? Photos 3 and 4 that I sent also today show rotting that could have been seen if it was part of the annual cycle. And next, since we're talking about the trees on the terrace, I also want to mention a much smaller tree on my terrace that was not accounted for. And that tree, while it's much smaller, has a power line, city-owned, running right through the tree. Not to the side, not above, through it. If this is the tree, the power line goes like this. There is an ordinance with the city. City Ordinance 594-5B, and it says I cannot plant a tree under city-owned power lines. But yet somehow the city did it, and now there is a power line going through a tree. I'm tired of hearing the phrase discretionary immunity as a blanket excuse when I've disproved other excuses the last 2 months. I'm not asking the city to be perfect, nobody is. But one has to wonder, if the city uses discretionary immunity as a blanket excuse, why are we as a city taking any steps to mitigate risk, liability, or injury? Why do we spend any taxpayer money on heavy machinery, bucket lifts, drones to evaluate trees? Why do we even take down any trees at all, when we can simply say discretionary immunity?
And that's your 3 minutes, Chris, if you can wrap up, please.
Thank you. While other areas of the state are securing grants like the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant through FEMA to help their citizens bury power lines, our city is fighting its citizens and dragging claims out for months while not being transparent. My last question is, what is the city doing to obtain grant funding to bury power lines, just like the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin did in March when they received $872,894 through FEMA? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And as you know, we don't take action on items that aren't on the agenda, but we can certainly, seek advice from our staff to follow up. Thank you. Okay, who's registered next?
My name is Andrea Turk. I live at W8001 County Highway B. I am a concerned homeowner. I am here today to voice my strong opposition to the proposed apartment complex on the site of the former landfill on Highway B. While I understand the need for development and housing, I believe this project raises significant concerns related to safety, strain to resources, and environmental impact that cannot be overlooked. First, I would like to address the issue of traffic safety. That section of Highway B already suffers from heavy traffic, particularly during peak travel hours. The addition of 165 new units and over 285 parking spots for vehicles will exacerbate traffic problems on this already busy stretch of highway. The intersection of Highway B and Highway V is especially problematic, and adding more vehicles will likely lead to more accidents, endangering pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers alike. Second, there is a matter of strain on resources. The increased density will not only strain our infrastructure, but will also strain our already crowded school system. Our current systems are not designated to handle the additional load that the development would bring. And finally, I am deeply concerned about the deforestation that would result from the development. The site in question currently consists of valuable green space, trees, and natural habitats. These trees are not only crucial for the environment, providing air quality benefits, carbon sequestration, and wildlife habitats, but they also contribute to the aesthetic value of our community. Removing these trees to make way for an apartment complex would be a significant loss to both the environment and the quality of life for nearby residents in all of Lake Mills. In conclusion, I believe that Weingard, who stands to benefit significantly financially if this project is approved, has grossly underestimated the strain that this development will create for our community in order to get their proposition passed. And while I recognize the need for housing and development, I believe that this particular project, in its current form, poses unacceptable risks to traffic safety and the environment. I urge the council to understand and consider alternative locations, reevaluate the design to minimize environmental impact, and prioritize the safety and well-being of our community. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope the council will make a thoughtful decision that reflects the concerns of our residents who live here.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Anita Martin. We live at 261 Pinnacle Drive in Lake Mills. Some of you have already seen this information that's been posted on the Rock Lake Improvement Association's website, but it's an important piece of information that I think folks need to know. Susan Trier, the president of the Rock Lake Improvement Association, did do an article about a study that was done in July of 2022 on lakes and rivers in Wisconsin and Michigan. 42 waterways were tested. I think that includes Rock Lake. And they were looking for the existence of the forever chemicals, the PFAS chemicals. They did find PFAS chemicals in the foam. So foam is not an uncommon phenomenon on Rock Lake along the shorelines and also by the boat launches, and it can be the result of natural processes like organic material decomposing. It also can be the result of chemicals. So PFAS chemicals were found in the foam on Rock Lake back then, and also in the surface water to a lesser extent. It's very important that anyone that sees the foam, which can continue as long as the lake is open, avoids that foam. Kids, animals, people that might be just walking along there, because no level of PFAS chemicals is considered to be safe at this point. They don't really know fully about these chemicals. They're forever chemicals. Hopefully there will be more research done as to what the potential sources have been. These chemicals can be around for decades, so could it have been things that happened at or around the landfill? Could it have been chemicals related to the dry cleaning? Could it have been chemicals related to foundry? Various different things are possible. Unlike other lakes, we don't have an obvious identified source of the PFAS chemicals. So just to remind people, and if you have not seen the article, it's excellent. Just to quickly add that Susan, when she did the research in talking to one of the main researchers that did the study, she also talked to Mr. Daly about PFAS testing, and the city of Lake Mills has tested in the municipal water in 2022, 2023, and 2024, and did not detect any PFAS chemicals, so that's important. Now, that doesn't account for people that have private drinking water that are in the town and that. So just to be aware, if you haven't seen the article, please, Google Rock Lake Improvement Association, go to the page, and it's on the left side. Excellent article. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. And the Rock Lake Improvement Association did send that article to all the city council members, so we've gotten a chance to take a look at that. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else registered to speak tonight?
Hi, I'm Brandy Broskowski-Duro, 204 West Lake Park Place, Lake Mills. So I'm speaking tonight about the need to revisit the 2040 Comprehensive Long-Term Plan for Development in Lake Mills. The thought about going forward to consider changes in zoning seems premature. Especially important is a detail that uses the term planned mixed use. That's in purple on this 2040 plan. In my opinion, that term definitely needs to be defined thoroughly by Mead Hunt, because it seems contrary to the present use of it, which is a conservation easement. When you read about planned mixed use, it doesn't have anything to do with a conservation easement, and that should be in perpetuity. So I don't know why that is on the comprehensive plan. To me, it's very misleading, and I think it's important that this be revised so it's accurate. Maybe this is not accurate. Maybe that term being used is not accurate. So definitely, I think this should be looked at before any rezoning is considered, because that could end up with some legal problems down the road. If we think that this planned multifamily fits there because of that section next to it, maybe then change to a mixed use, which it most likely would never be. And on top of that, last week a gentleman, Mr. Hale, spoke about fitting what's being developed on Highway B into the surrounding area, and that really does not fit, and especially does not fit for the long term if the other area is a conservation easement, and then to have this huge multifamily complex, which leads to the whole idea of Highway B being narrow and used oftentimes for leisurely uses, people walking, biking, enjoying themselves, not wanting to watch for this big increase in traffic, which could include many more cars and big trucks. A lot of people have big pickup trucks now. And this also entails not only all of the buildings and the impermeable surfaces, but all of the parking requirements that will be necessary, adding to more impermeable surfaces. I mentioned that last week, and it's important that everybody keeps that thought in mind, because that's just not a wise thing to put such paved areas all over, especially that close to the lake and to the wetlands. So my other quick comment has to do with why this location, when there are other locations to consider, not only across the interstate, but just in the city, to think about where multifamily units could fit, and a developer could be encouraged to look at other sites. Trying to fit this plan into that space does not seem wise in the long run, and I certainly hope it's reconsidered and it's not rushed into because thinking, oh, we need the tax base and they're going to help with infrastructure. I am still very concerned about digging into landfills and who in the long run legally would be liable for cleaning up anything if something happens, and I don't want to see Lake Mills put on the map because we have some big issue with the landfill that's been dug up. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Anyone else registered to speak this evening? Or want to speak on an item on the agenda? Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment for this evening then and move on to item number 7, which is our city manager's report.
Only item I have to report is Vanguard has requested a delay in their presentation to the city council as they revise their proposal. We are currently targeting the January 21st city council meeting. If that changes, I will update the city council, but January 21st is when we expect a presentation of their proposal.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. Any questions for Drake on that item or anything else? Okay, then we will move on to item number 8, which is council business. Our first item of business is confirmation of the city council president's appointment of Jacob Slaby to the Parks Board. So this is my appointment that I'm asking for the council's confirmation of. Jacob Slaby applied for the position that was recently vacated by McCray Baker, who had to step down due to increased job responsibilities. So Jacob would be filling a term that ends in April of 2026. He's here in the audience if anybody wants to meet him or talk with him, but I've had a chance to talk with him after he applied, and it's very, he and his young family very enthusiastically use the parks in our city, and he's looking forward to the opportunity to work on the board. Are there any questions? If not, I'll look for a nomination.
I did want to note that he sent out an email this afternoon to kind of outline some of his experiences, and it was a nice email, so I very much appreciate that.
Great.
So,
Thanks.
Do we need a motion for this?
Yeah, we need a motion and a second to confirm the appointment.
I will move approval to confirm Jacob Slaby to the Parks Board, term ending 2026.
second?
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Schmaker, seconded by Mr. Waters. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, Misty, would you please call a roll call vote?
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidno?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. And Jacob, you'll be able to serve at the next Parks Board meeting, which I think is next Monday, so just talk to the clerk about the paperwork you have to sign to get all set up there. Okay, our next item is Resolution 24-81, which is related to an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Oakland. Misty, would you read the title of that resolution for us?
City Council Resolution 24-81, resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Lake Mills and the Town of Oakland for provision of emergency medical services.
Thank you. So I would suggest that we go ahead and have staff summarize this before we entertain a motion, just so we can all learn the background and why this is in front of us today. And I would note that we also have Laura Payne, who's the town chair from the town of Oakland, is here as well, and we'll invite her to speak when we get to that point. So we'll start with Drake.
Sure. I'll give you a brief overview of the item, and then Attorney Drescher can fill in any gaps. And then Cody Letson with Ryan Brothers is available as well if there are questions of him, as well as Chief Jason Russ. We were approached by the town of Oakland for the provision of emergency medical services. As come January 1st, they will not have coverage, and so they approached us for the ability to provide coverage to them. We spoke with Ryan Brothers. They confirmed that based on call volume and expected additional call volume from the town of Oakland, that we do have capacity to incorporate their territory into our contract with Ryan Brothers without a reduction in service levels, as well as then a subsequent reduction in cost because of the expansion of the service area. So that is what is before you tonight. It's a very similar intergovernmental agreement to the one we currently enjoy with the town of Aztalan. It does attach them to the parent agreement that we have with Ryan Brothers, so they would be with us through the initial term, and then we would obviously have conversations with both Ryan Brothers and any townships interested in continuing with us on a potential extension of that. So that's a conversation I would anticipate we would have in the future regarding a potential extension of our contract with Ryan Brothers for EMS. There is a service map that is attached to your agenda, and then there will be a subsequent item on fire protection services. But I'll turn it over to Attorney Drescher if there's any points in the agreement that he would like to specifically point out to you. And then if you have questions of Ryan Brothers or Chief Russ, or if you would like to ask any questions of the town chair.
I think that was pretty good in a nutshell. Do you have any questions? You have done this before with regard to the town of Ashland, the portion of the service area that was kind of expanded the original map in the agreement with Ryan Brothers. This expansion of services is contemplated under the parent agreement, the agreement with Ryan Brothers. As Drake said, both the fire department and who provides the subsequent or kind of subsidiary EMS service with our ambulance, and the Ryan Brothers itself have said that they have capacity to engage in this service. I think that's really it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
The only additional thing I'll add is that with the town of Oakland's service ending on January 1, if they were to be without service, then it can put a strain on other entities in the area and to provide mutual aid to it. So, we are reached out to by a neighbor for help with coverage. We are able to assist them, which is why it's before you today without a undue strain on the city's current services. So that's why it's before you today. We have spoken with the town of Oakland, and that if in the future there is another entity that they are able to come to terms with and that is capable of serving them, that we would discuss with them a way that's mutually beneficial to both the city and to them to provide for who would be best able to serve the service area. It is not staff's position that we want territory for territory's sake. This is an attempt to help a neighbor as they don't have coverage come January 1. But if there is an option available to them in the future, and a break from this contract is in the best interest of that service area and does not harm the city as far as budgetarily and expectations of service, then we and Ryan Brothers would work with them to ensure that they can best serve their residents with emergency medical services.
Thank you, and I would note that there is a map with our agenda materials, and it shows this would be the sort of the northwest portion of the town of Oakland that would be covered by Ryan Brothers, and other areas of the township are covered by other communities. So we're just taking one portion of the township is what's being proposed. Are there any questions for staff or for Ryan Brothers? Mary?
I have a question. I was curious to note what the relevance is of inserts 1 through 4 in the exhibit, and if there was something contractual that is the reason why that they're highlighted as such in the map. I didn't see any reference in any of the materials, and I was curious what they were for.
Are you referring to those, they're sort of in yellow?
It says insert 1,
Yeah.
it's green, inside the
Oh, it's
Lake
green.
Mills Ryan
Okay.
Brothers in the purple, right, the purple hash, you see, yeah, in there it says insert 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I didn't know if there was what relevance, what that meant, or it's
Oh, you're on the map?
on the map, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I guess
The
everyone's looking.
green,
Perhaps
in the
Chief Russ
green,
is standing
yes,
up,
in the
perhaps he
green.
knows, or he can look at the map.
When I looked at the map, then I referred back to the materials thinking perhaps there was some importance for the reason why they had insert and that they were being called out for a business purpose or a contractual purpose, and I wasn't able to find anything, so I'm just curious why they were designated.
Hey, Jason, do you want to take this with you? Okay.
So that map that you have in front of you was provided with several others where it's a blown up area of that. It's a tighter area of the town of Oakland. Basically that there was just showing the sections that we needed. And so that insert is just an underlayment that was on the map that we originally were using.
Okay,
So there are other maps that could go with this that zoom in a little closer on
Yeah,
those
just
areas.
into those
is what you're saying.
tighter areas of the town of Oakland, the more dense population areas. And there's also some edges on what would be the very western border where the village of Cambridge actually extends into the town of Oakland, say around the school area. There's a couple like little postage stamp areas that are islands
Okay.
that there was some insert that overlays on.
So it's mainly for, so if I could understand why this insert is to like maybe blow up more of a city street view, and it wasn't intended to be anything that changes the way that you would service. It was just more for.
Correct,
like,
that was
map.
just,
Okay,
that
thank
was
you.
just to show the tighter areas, the addresses that were located in those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, and I would like to recognize Laura Payne, who's the town chair for the town of Oakland. Just give her the opportunity to share any thoughts that she has about this proposal.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me this evening. On behalf of the Oakland Town Board, I appreciate your consideration to provide fire and EMS service to parts of Oakland. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of how we came to request assistance from Lake Mills in a general nature, as well as why it's so late in the year to request that. A year ago, the 4 current supervisors and the former chair of Oakland voted unanimously to withdraw from the Cambridge Fire Commission and gave us required 1-year notice that they would be leaving as of January 1st, 2025. There were a lot of issues that had been happening continually for the last couple of years, and they have still continued to date. Over the past year, the town of Oakland has attempted to resolve these issues, including new IGA proposals, and the most recent time was this summer. We had proposed with the village of Cambridge, a new IGA and mediation with the other 3 entities. However, that request for a new IGA and mediation was rejected outright without any further discussion. And so that was September. And at that point, it was decided that I would approach Fort Atkinson and Jefferson to expand their current coverage in the eastern portion of Oakland. And I also approached Chief Russ to request EMS and fire coverage in the remaining portion of the town of Oakland that is currently provided by the Cambridge Fire Commission. With much discussion with Oakland, their individual departments, and together, the 3 chiefs were confident that they could provide excellent service to us as they currently do in their own districts. The town board voted unanimously to accept Lake Mills Fire and Ryan Brothers EMS contracts, and we are very confident that this is the best solution for our residents. We have asked a lot of questions about the services. They have provided excellent answers. We really do feel confident that we will be providing a good service for our community, and that we look forward to working with the city of Lake Mills. And finally, I'd just like to express my sincerest gratitude to Chief Russ, Attorney Dresser, City Manager Daly, and also Service Director Cody Letson from Ryan Brothers. The city of Lake Mills is truly very fortunate to have people who are this knowledgeable, thoughtful, and hardworking as they are. They have really been a huge help to us. And lastly, thank you for consideration, and thank you for your service to your community. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Payne? Great.
Yes.
Ms. Payne, thank you for the recap. Over the last year, I've had a chance to read in media, but it's always nice to hear it firsthand and understand some of the issues that you might be facing. I think as a council, we probably want to see the town of Oakland get services as close as possible to their location, but at the same time understanding the issues that you're up against. It's important to help neighbors, and I guess we have the capacity to help out. So thank you, and wish you the best.
Thank you, thank you. And we understand that this is further away, but really at this time, we do feel that this is the best option for us for the various reasons. You know, I don't want to go into all of the issues that have been had over the last several years, but it really is best for us at this time. And we, you know, as your attorney and city manager have stated, there's the things that we could talk to in the future if there's other closer services or other options. We're happy to discuss that with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I had one question, Laura, if you know off the top of your head, what is the approximate number of people that are served by the area that Lake Mills Ryan Brothers would be covering? Or maybe Chief?
1,800?
1,800.
1,800,
So
okay.
the area covered by Lake Mills would include mostly around the lake.
Around Lake Ripley?
Lake Ripley.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Yeah, coming down on County A from here. and
Right,
then
coming
kind of
down
around.
County Road A, around the lake, all the way around, in the eastern part. Further north would be Jefferson, and then the eastern part, more south, would be Fort Atkins. And like I said, they do service us already, and so they would just be expanding into, you know, into further in west. And the three chiefs have met and to ensure that there are no gaps in the coverage and there are no overlaps. So they worked together to determine which was the best fire to service for the entire area.
Thank you. I do have one follow-up for city staff. I guess I'm wondering, well, maybe it's more of a comment, I guess, than a question, but when I look at this map, it really just makes me think about it, as Greg kind of alluded to, the, you know, future opportunities for regionalization or consolidation. And I'm just wondering if we can anticipate anything through the county on that, or how we could start those conversations or continue those conversations.
I guess the short answer is I don't know. Both myself and Chief Russ have been vocal about our commitment and openness to regionalization of services to provide efficiencies as well as the highest level of service throughout the region that we may be able to participate in. So we are certainly open to those conversations with others when they're ready to have them. But I don't know of any, you know, formal action or formal what may be coming. I'm not aware of anything imminent right now, but we are ready, willing, and able to have those conversations when other partners would like to have them.
Thank you very much for that. And I guess, you know, a couple other comments I would make. I agree with what's already been said by others, that I think, you know, we're happy to be good neighbors and, you know, bring other, you know, neighbors in under our contract. And what I really like about, and staff developed this for the ask to land, and we're continuing it with the two that are before us tonight, is having that equalization language in the contract. So we're not making money off of this. We're not losing money off of this. There's a process where everybody ends up paying the same by, you know, reimbursements, you know, once a year. So I think that's something we're trying to be as fair as we can and really just put the highest priority on providing emergency services to our neighbors where we're able. So I appreciate the work that staff did on that language back when we looked at this for Astellan, and that we're continuing it here. And again, just thank you to all our staff for working on this on such short notice, because I know there's a lot of logistics to put together with county dispatch and get that information. And Chief Russ, we're fortunate that you know all of that and know how to put that information together and get that to our county staff so that this can be implemented quickly. So just appreciate everybody putting this together and working with the town of Oakland on a short timeline to make this happen.
And we really appreciate the short timeline. That's why I wanted to just reiterate what's happening the past year, and that we were really trying to resolve issues, and it obviously was not working for us. So I do really appreciate the short timeline. I know that it's a lot of work for all the chiefs and Ryan Brothers to get familiar with our community, and we are available to help them whatever they need, and we are just really, truly grateful for any assistance. And I just want to also reiterate that we did approach you. I know that that there may have been comments about that Lake Mills and others expanding, but we really did ask to have this assistance. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear for people.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Are there any other questions for, Mary, yes?
I have a question. I think it would be helpful to just share how we know that we have capacity to take on other areas. Because I think that would be really important for the citizens
so we have-
to understand.
Probably need to cover that from both EMS and fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
But since we're on EMS, and we have
So we have
two, I thought that would be-
Cody Lutzen here from Ryan Brothers. So Cody, if you could address that, that would be great.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cody Lutzen. I can speak on behalf of the EMS. We sat down when Oakland approached us, took a look at their population that they were interested in covering. We also looked at their historic call volumes and things like that. This year, our service for the city of Lake Mills, we're on pace for about 500 to 510 calls with our primary ambulance. Based on the information that Oakland gave us, we're kind of anticipating about 125 calls per year from their service. So, that puts us in that 650 range or so, which is still less than 2 calls per day for EMS. You think about it, that's 1 call every 12 hours. Definitely have the capacity to do that. We also have the capacity with a backup ambulance from the fire department to cover us anytime we get multiple calls at one time. Obviously, we can't staff for those occasions that have 5 or 6 ambulances. Hopefully, we don't have any of those anytime soon here, but we do also maintain mutual aid agreements with our neighbors for those occasions. So that's why, just based on the numbers, that we feel confident that we can cover their call volume, the addition of their call volume. So I'll let the chief speak on the fire behalf.
From the EMS side, as far as Lake Mills, we're covering anywhere between 3 to 6 calls a month. Additionally, these are mostly the lift assist calls. Last night was a rarity where we did have 3 calls within under an hour's time frame. It really looks at the idea of what financially we can provide. Of course, you could plan for the what-ifs, but it's very hard to financially do the what-ifs. So those incidences will happen. Those incidences will happen to our neighbors. And just like they are able to provide service to us when those incidences happen, we're more than happy to provide services in return to them. Right now, the tentative call volume is looking roughly at about 600 and 625 is kind of the rough. At that point, we are still in the 1.8 range, 1.7 range for call volume per day. In a 24-hour period for those calls to overlap is pretty rare. Most of the times, we're not covering secondary EMS calls for Ryan Brothers due to a doubled-up call. It's mostly because in the previous agreement, it was that we handled the lift assist calls, and all secondary, we're mostly handling those. I come from an area that easily handled 1,300 calls, staffed with one ambulance, along with backed up by paid-on-call membership. That's not an uncommon number. And we're well underneath those numbers, as I had mentioned. So we feel very comfortable. The staff at the fire department is currently at 40. That's a very strong roster. We are getting good turnout. We do have the partnership within the city as far as during the day. So I don't see any issues with us covering the additional call volume.
Great.
Can you also address fire protection, which is the next question on the agenda?
Fire protection realistically goes the same way. Probably the biggest thing that's going to be happening down there is motor vehicle accidents. We've already targeted a couple intersections that we know are, when you start looking at planning for this stuff, the dispatch center is able to give us what I call as a heat map. Basically, they take a map of the township or the area, and they can overlay calls on that map to show you where your density of call volume is. So we've identified a few areas there. A lot of our membership already has familiarity with the Cambridge area because we already do respond mutual aid to them for MABUS events or larger events. So we're somewhat familiar with the area. We are doing active training. Part of the officer meeting tonight was reviewing the township maps, looking at different areas, accesses to the lakes, potential access to water for drafting purposes and items like that. So with the strong roster that we currently have, I feel that it would be no problem. And that number from 125 actually takes it down to like 25, 35. So it's a smaller number for fire responses.
Thank you.
Mary, did that address your
Yes, thank you.
questions? Thank you. Any other questions? We're still on the, make sure I have the number right here. Resolution 24-81 regarding the EMS for Town of Oakland.
Yeah, the only thing I would add as far as capacity as well is we do have six, if you include Chief Russ, full-time city employees that are members of the Lake Mills Fire Department. And it has been a long-standing policy of the city to allow full-time city employees to leave to go on emergency service calls. So during the daytime hours when our volunteer base is the least available, we have a pretty robust base of employees who are capable of responding to employee calls. So that adds to our ability. It is an on-call ambulance that we operate, but response can be relatively quick because they're here and able to get to the station in a timely manner.
Thank you. Any additional questions or discussion? Mr. Fields, I want to try to look at you from time to time to see if you have any questions or comments.
Nope, I'm good. All the questions I was looking at asking were all covered already, so we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a motion?
Please do.
A motion to approve Resolution 24-81, approval of intergovernmental agreement with the Town of Oakland for the provision of emergency medical services.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Watterson, a second by Ms. Quidnow. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, if not, Misty, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is also for the Town of Oakland, but this is fire protection services. So we have Resolution 24-82. Misty, would you read that title for us?
City Council Resolution 24-82, resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement for the provision of fire protection and inspection services by the City of Lake Mills to a portion of the Town of Oakland.
And let's do this similarly, just have staff go through any additional information before we have a motion. So Drake, we had a little bit of discussion into the fire, but if you can talk some more about that.
All very similar to previous statements that were made. I'm just going to ask Attorney Drescher to go over two clauses that Attorney Van Clunen from the town of Oakland contacted us about this afternoon. Those are in front of you. We don't consider them to be deal breakers or anything like that, so just to update you on what those changes were.
I did provide you the email correspondence requesting these two changes. The first one is, I'll go in the order that they're on the email. Section F, the term of the contract, it was originally drafted in accordance with the kind of our template for fire services that we enter into a 10-year agreement. However, the parties have the ability to terminate that agreement after 1 year on 6 months' notice, I believe. The new language mirrors the Ryan Brothers contract for EMS services. So the first term will actually be 18 months. And then there will be subsequent automatic renewals for 3-year terms unless the town of Oakland, the town, either provides notice of non-renewal within 270 days prior to the renewal cycle, or notice of termination 180 days before the date of termination. This is language from the Ryan Brothers agreement. Attorney Van Clunen, representing the town of Oakland, felt far more comfortable with this language rather than any ambiguity or an initial term of 10 years after discussing with the town board, and I didn't think it was objectionable. So that's why I'm sorry that you received kind of a last minute update, but this has been kind of dynamic. It was over the lunch hour that I spoke with Attorney Van Clunen and agreed to this change, or to represent this change to you. The second one in the same discussion is kind of it's not a warranty. I don't want to call it a warranty, but it does create an extra clause that's added to section D2 regarding capital purchases and the pro rata share that the township will be charged on an annual basis under our capital budgeting process. What happens now, the city gives notice, there's meetings at the end of the year, and the entire power to make capital purchases, to invest capital funds on behalf of the fire department is vested in the city council. That doesn't change. We do have to give the township notice. They will be aware of the budget implications. Everything is status quo there. The clause that they asked to add is a simple statement that the city will only invoice the town of Oakland for the town's proportionate share of any purchased vehicles or equipment that are necessary to carry out the fire protection services to the town under this contract. I think there's some ambiguity in that statement. I think there's a lot of discretion in defining the term necessary. We're talking about life-saving applications. I don't know where you start and stop. I think the professionals kind of get to decide that, and through the budgeting process, we establish what is necessary for the operation of this service throughout the entire service area. So I don't feel uncomfortable with that clause, but I think they felt more comfortable having such a statement in there. Perhaps if Laura has any insight into the necessity for that clause, she can open our eyes to it or enlighten us a little bit. In discussing with Attorney Van Clunen, it was specifically stated that there's just some concern there that the city is going to purchase and charge the town of Oakland for implements that aren't necessary for service to them. And I just can't really picture or put my finger on what that would be. There are no large capital purchase that are contemplated by the fire department in the first year of this contract. I mean, because you've looked at the 2025 budget. We did just purchase in the last number of years significant capital purchases for the fire department, including the ladder truck that is just being delivered at the end of the year here. I could see a circumstance where if the fire department needed to expand its building to serve this area, perhaps Oakland would object to that for some reason. But I don't think that that's really contemplated or something that will affect this contract within the initial term. So I don't think that the term is that the additional clause language there is necessarily objectionable. And Attorney Van Clunen wanted it added. So That's kind of where I'll leave that. I'm happy to do my best answering questions there, but I think generally this is consistent with our practices anyway, so.
I think to allay any concerns of the city council, in that, in my experience, townships actually require more implements for fire protection services than cities do. And Chief Russ can speak to that only in that, for example, right now, the city pays a proportionate share when we purchase a tender truck, a water truck. The city has no need for water trucks because we have a hydrant system throughout our community. So we pay a proportionate share of those, but we don't necessarily benefit from them. I struggle to think of another implement that is only beneficial to an urban or city usage. So I don't think there is a large capital purchase in which this clause would be triggered beyond, right, a building expansion or a satellite building if the north side of the interstate develops someday and we added enough population where Chief Russ came and said, I think we need to consider another location because of the distance and time it takes to get over there. So maybe that could trigger something like that. But as far as the things that you are used to seeing that we purchase for the fire department, I would label all of them as necessary to provide the service.
Thank you. Any questions from council members? Great.
I am kind of getting hung up on the word necessary a little bit. I don't know if there's a term we could use there that might clean it up and make an amendment here, or
On the fly is tough.
And just to
that's
clarify,
where I've
this
been
is,
angling for the last minute trying to come up with something.
and this is a sentence they're asking to be added, but not having anything taken out of
Correct.
the contract that would still
Correct.
clarify
It's-
what all
if you
those, what
look
the
at
process is for all those.
Correct. If you look at the updated draft, that it was updated today and attached to the agenda, that's the only change in D2. This sentence was added at the very end of that clause.
The only thing I can think of that you may be able to add that I don't know if the town of Oakland would be amenable to is necessary as determined by the fire chief. Add a discretionary element to the professional in charge of the operations of that department.
Right, the conflict I'm thinking of is that our chief may say it's necessary, but the township may say it's not necessary, and then you get into a conflict.
And then there's arbitration or mediation clauses within the contract to go through the
Right.
dispute resolution process.
It'd be nice to prevent that if
I
possible.
totally agree with that statement.
I
Mrs.
think that's
Miller?
a really good point, Greg. I guess what I'm thinking about, though, is that we're both coming into this with goodwill and with an intention to, provide services to our neighbor. And knowing that this maybe isn't going to be the long-term solution for the town of Oakland, I'm hoping that we wouldn't, that there, in the short term, there wouldn't arise a dispute over what was necessary or not, but, we never know. Steve.
Couple of quick questions. I guess I don't have a problem with the way it's worded right now. I think it's pretty straightforward, especially being that both parties are entering into this in good faith. I guess the only question I'd have is this the same wording or terminology that Jefferson and Fort Atkinson are signing on to also?
No, I'm not familiar with Jefferson or Fort Atkinson's contracts, and I assume that there are distinctions throughout those. Each one is unique.
Okay, thank you.
Laura Payne, is there anything that you could add on that, on this second clause that we have from your township's attorney? Any further thoughts that you would want to add to clarify that? Do you have the language in front of you? Maybe you don't.
On my computer.
Thanks, Dan. I mean, it's certainly something I think we want to work for both municipalities.
Yeah, this was language that a couple of the other supervisors felt more comfortable adding. I don't necessarily feel that, I didn't particularly request it. And a couple other supervisors they just had I don't want to say a concern, because I don't think that anybody on our board feels that Lake Mills would charge us for something that wasn't necessary, or they would be frivolous in their expenditures. I don't feel that at all, that would happen. And I think it was more of a legal thing with the attorneys more than anything that the board, at least myself, I'm speaking for myself, would, felt like it was necessary to add. So if there was concerns about this particular clause, I'm happy to discuss any changes that you would like to make with it. I don't think that, I want to get hung up over one particular sentence. So if you feel that this is uncomfortable for you and you would like to revise it to something else, that's something that we could discuss, and maybe with Michael too, and just come to another agreement if.
The practical answer to that is we're kind of at the last minute here.
Right.
With regard to board action. If we were to amend on the fly, obviously the council can do that, but then we need to subsequently go back to your board for approvals, et cetera. I'd be more inclined to just strike that clause. If it's objectionable to you, the city council, it wasn't included in the original agreement that we provided to the town of Oakland. It was added at the last second. I personally don't think that it has substantial force and effect that we're going to see an issue because of that additional language. But I think it's reasonable to say if you don't think that, then why is it there? So if we were going to go through an amendment process on this, I would rather that the council just draws a line and says, strike that clause because we're just not comfortable with it. We're providing you this service, you can take it under these terms or you cannot. I don't think that's too heavy-handed or anything. I think that's a reasonable approach here. However, if you don't find the language objectionable, I personally don't think that it's undue or that it's going to cause some kind of fracture or undue liability on the city of Lake Mills. However, to Mr. Waters' point, it does contain a term that does provide ambiguity in compared to the original document that has full discretion, full authority in such purchases vested in the city council. This takes it maybe a minor step away from that. So if you're concerned with that, the route I would go is just strike and move on with the original agreement.
Well, why don't we don't have a motion on the table yet, so if somebody, unless there's further discussion, we could have someone make a motion in second, and then we could discuss a possible amendment and see if people want to do that. So why don't we start with a motion for Resolution 2482 as written and go from there.
I would suggest perhaps titling it as updated, bringing in those two clauses. It wasn't the original agreement that you guys saw, so we did update it as of today, and it is titled now updated 12/3/24. It's the same title after that, fire protection contract for the city or the town of Oakland, excuse me.
We don't need to change the resolution though, right? That has there's nothing different
you
in
want
the
us to-
actual resolution. It's the contract that's been revised.
Because it refers to the prior attached contract, I don't want there to be confusion there. It refers to that document as titled, I believe, and here we have provided an updated version to you. So I think that would be an appropriate amendment, just so that we're crystal and clear as to what document is actually going forward and being approved.
And that's what I'm trying to clarify. Does the resolution itself need to be amended? It doesn't refer to a date of a contract, so.
Do you mean the resolution title?
It doesn't,
Just the overall text of
Contract
the
for-
resolution 24-82, the overall text does not refer to a specific date of a of a contract.
Yeah,
so-
if we attach, I'm fine with it. If we attach this document, and it is referred to as the contract for services with the town of Oakland, the one that you've contemplated in adopting this resolution, then I'm comfortable with that. I just want to be crystal and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay, so I think procedurally then we could have a motion and a second for Resolution 24-82, then we can discuss amending the contract and see if people want to do that or not, and vote on that, and then go ahead with voting on the resolution with a possibly amended contract. Will that work? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 24-82, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement for the provision of fire protection and inspection services by the City of Lake Mills to a portion of the town of Oakland.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Quinn, second by Ms. Schmaker. So now we've discussed that the most recent contract language that we have that is attached to our agenda dated today has two items that are included in it that were recommended by the town's attorney, and we've had some discussion on the last sentence of Section D2 of that fire protection contract.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend the contract for fire protection.
And how would you?
Looking at Section D2, it would be to strike the last sentence. The city will only invoice the town for the town's proportionate share of any purchased vehicles and equipment that are necessary to carry out the fire protection services to the town under this contract.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the fire protection contract by Mr. Waters. Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, there's no second. Is there any further discussion on Resolution 24-82? Okay, seeing none. Misty, can you please call the roll on Resolution 24-82?
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the town of Oakland for reaching out to us and to our staff. I'm glad we were able to provide this service, and we'll look forward to continued discussions, I think, as time goes on.
Thank you very much.
Anything else from staff, or we're good? Okay, thank you. All right, our next agenda item then is Resolution 24-83, which is also an intergovernmental agreement. This is with the town of Lake Mills. So Misty, would you read that title, please?
City Council Resolution 24-83, resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Lake Mills and the Town of Lake Mills for provision of emergency medical services.
Okay, so again, let's go to staff first to kind of give a summary of this, and I see that we have a town chair, Tom Beekle, is on the line, so if there are any questions for him or if he wants to say anything, we can certainly recognize him as well. So Drake, you want to kick it
Sure.
off?
So the town clerk reached out to myself following town board action to request an option from the city to join us under the Ryan Brothers contract. We did discuss with Mr. Letson again regarding our capacity, even considering the addition of the town of Oakland, and we still remain under the threshold in which we would consider ourselves to be reducing our level of service in order to extend service to others. So the call volume is still at a threshold under which our current arrangement can support. Based on the experts that we have, Chief Russ and Service Director Letson. The only difference here is in this case, this is before the City Council, before it is before the Town Board. So I spoke with Mr. Beekle, told him that we would get something put together in front of them in time for their I apologize, I can't remember, either the December 10th or December 11th meeting. I can't recall which day they're meeting on. For their consideration, this is kind of a backup plan for them as they're unsure what service may look like in the new year under their current provider, and they want to be sure that they have coverage if it's needed. So again, in this situation, we are happy to help a neighbor when they ask us, and we have the capability to do so, and that it doesn't unduly burden the city in order to do so. And so that is why this is before you tonight. The service area of EMS will mirror the current service area covered by our fire contract with them. So there is a portion of the town of Lake Mills that'll remain with their current provider, even if they choose to come with us under this one. So this is a little bit different because the town of Oakland had previously approved entering in with us. This is us offering to the town of Lake Mills what that would look like, and then they'll make a determination at a future board meeting.
Okay, thank you. And one of the questions I was going to ask that you clarified is that this, and we have a map, again, of this area, service area, so it's not the entirety of the town of Lake Mills, but it's most of it in the northeast, certainly going around the lake, and most of the surface area of the township, and that's the same as our fire protection district, so.
Yeah, that was our understanding of the request from the town
Okay.
for the area they were seeking a proposal on.
Okay. All right, are there any questions? Mary?
I have a question. If I understood correctly, the fire protection map would be different. So where the EMS that we're picking up is not always serviced by our Lake Mills Fire Department. So did I understand that correctly?
No, the service area.
I'm sorry.
We might have more, Chief Russ, so you might as well come up.
Currently, the service area agreement would be an exact mirror of the fire service area.
Okay, because I was going to ask specifically if the paging algorithm is going to be more complicated or changed, but given that it's the same, then it'd fit into what you're already
Correct.
doing.
It's
Okay.
going to be the exact same.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? As long as you're up there, I think you talked about the anticipated increase in call volume for the town of Oakland. Did you also give us those numbers? Drake said it would be still under the threshold, but do you have any
Yeah.
of those numbers?
Again, we're looking at roughly, it's going to be about the same population, and Ryan Brothers, I know, uses, based off of population, kind of the expected emergency medical service usage out of that population. There's a lot of things that do play into that. The mix of the population that's there, median age, there's a lot of things that do come into play with it. But that number is also pretty consistent. The mix of people throughout America stays pretty consistent through a lot of areas. So we'd be looking at roughly about the same. It's a surrounded lake community, rural area. We were also looking at, it's going to bring approximately 100 to 125 calls for service. That would then give a total of approximately 750 for the entirety.
For all of our emergency services with the city, town of
EMS.
Aztalan, town of Oakland, town of Lake Mills,
Yes, for
Okay.
EMS.
for EMS, right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff or Ryan Brothers? And Tom, I see you're on the line. Thanks for joining us. Anything you'd like to say?
Oh, well, very early Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, winter solstice, whatever fits your fancy, since that mic is creeping up on us pretty quick here. Not a whole lot. We do have a board meeting, actually, a special meeting tomorrow morning, and then we have our regular board meeting next Tuesday, so I think we're going to have a pretty definitive decision of which direction this thing is going. One of our biggest concerns, again, is coverage, because we don't want to see anybody lose out because we're watered down. I think that's something that's really, really important. Because I think that just hurts everybody. So something that we're taking a hard look at right now.
Thanks. And your, this anticipated service start would also be January 1, similar to the
Correct.
town of Oakland, is that right? Okay. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Beagle? Okay, any further questions or discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-83, resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Lake Mills and the Town of Lake Mills for provision of emergency medical services.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Schmaker, seconded by Mr. Fields. Any further discussion? Okay, Misty, can we have a roll call vote, please, on Resolution 24-83?
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, everyone. And once again, I want to just acknowledge our staff, and particularly Chief Russ and Ryan Brothers, for working so collaboratively with our neighboring townships and making something work here so that our neighbors are protected. Okay, our next item is Resolution 24-84, which is authorizing a transfer of funds. Misty, would you read that title for us, please?
City Council Resolution 24-84, authorizing the city manager to direct the treasurer to transfer funds, capital budget.
Someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 24-84, authorizing the city manager to direct the treasurer to transfer funds, capital budget.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, seconded by Ms. Schmaker. Drake or Sam, would you like to tell us about
There
this one?
questions? This is kind of an annual thing that we do. It's a carryover of funds for projects that were budgeted for, borrowed for, that have not yet been completed. This happens regularly as deliveries are delayed or start times have been delayed or something like that. So this isn't a request of any new funds. It's simply carrying them into the new year to complete them using 2024 budgeted dollars rather than those dollars returning to, sitting in the capital fund balance, essentially.
So it's really just making sure that they're reserved for the projects that they were originally budgeted for, right?
Correct. And they can only be used for the projects that they were originally budgeted for.
Any questions or discussion on this resolution? And we have a list of those. There's a spreadsheet that Sam provided for that. Any further questions, discussion? Okay, seeing none, Misty, can you call the roll on Resolution 24-84?
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. That concludes council business for this evening. So our last agenda item is recommendations for future agendas. So we've talked a little bit about that. Next, what's up for next meeting?
I don't know about next meeting, but I think we're going to check to see council availability on the 18th or 19th for a work session on Sandy Beach. I think those are the only days we might reasonably be able to meet before the new year. If they don't work, we will find a time in January to do them, or maybe we need to have another one in January anyway. But I wanted to try and get something for you in the month of December. Obviously, we're limited in number of days that are available for it. I just want to reiterate again, in case anybody is watching, we are tentatively scheduled for a January 21st presentation by Vanguard for their development proposal. That's the second meeting in January, which is the third Tuesday. So January 21st at 7 o'clock p.m. If anything changes with that I will let you know, but they are revising their proposal prior to making a presentation to this body. I will keep, I think before the next meetings, we will talk about what if anything is planned for January 7th. That's a difficult agenda to get out just due to absences of vacation coming right out of the holidays. And so in years past, we have canceled the first meeting in January. Obviously, if we believe that there is business that needs to be done, we won't do that. But by the next council meeting, I'll try and have an understanding of if we think we need to have that meeting or not.
One item that I'm aware of that we've talked about, Drake and I in our ad hoc tree committee, is they'll be wrapping up their work at the end of December. But they have till the end of the year technically, and so their chair was asking to present at the first meeting in January rather than having to present at our next meeting in December. So that would be one. Hopefully there wouldn't be a lot of staff and staff work involved if we did need to have the meeting for that item.
Yes, thank you. That's a good reminder.
Anything else from council members of items you want to raise?
Mary.
I have one.
Mary.
I'm always still interested in our progress on wastewater treatment plant next steps, and I know I didn't see that in the Public Works agenda in the last minutes or so. So I would be interested in an update on that.
I have a meeting with our engineer tomorrow. So it's possible that we'll be able to put together some kind of update for you at our next meeting in December. It may be preliminary, but I think we can probably put together some kind of update for you on where we are at. We have been exploring regionalization possibilities, specifically with the city of Jefferson. So we'll be able to provide an update on that, as well as some updates at the reconfiguration, the retrofitting of the existing site versus purchasing land and building on a greenfield site at a new location. So I think we'll be able to put together some update for you at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking on that, Mary, because that is one of our strategic priorities. And but I know we had talked about, sometime in this horizon or maybe early part of next year, trying to, pick that up again and figure out next steps. So
My intention is to keep those conversations at the council level until the council chooses to refer it back to Public Works Board. But since it's been at the council level, that's how I'm proceeding at this point until the council directs otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, if not, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lisa.